Hello, good evening. Almost 10 to 11. This is Talk Radio. Mike Indian, political commentator. James Woudhuysen, who is a visiting professor at London South Bank University, join us on the Friday panel this evening. Chaps, I want to stay with the police just for a moment. We're going to talk about Kurt Zouma shortly, because I think there's a really interesting story about whether or not he should be held to account for his actions by losing his place in the team that he plays for after he was found, of course, to have kicked and slapped his cat and has apologised for doing so, and the RSPCA have taken the cats away from them. Should he then face the punishment of losing his place in his football team? Firstly, the Met Police are looking for a new chief, a new commissioner. We've talked a lot about policing tonight, so we'll just talk about this for a couple of minutes, but I'm keen to get the sense from you chaps what that new appointment should focus on. They've got a hell of an in tray. Public trust, political relationships, as James has been talking about there, misogyny and racism and the homophobia that has been found to have existed within sections of the police force, and the appalling way in which they've policed women's safety in the last couple of years. Mike, what is the number one job for the new commissioner?
I think it's the same. I'm sure James would agree with this as well. It's they've got to restore the trust in frontline policing, as we've seen. I mean, the fact is that we are still at a lower level of frontline officers than we were a decade ago. We have seen some absolutely appalling behaviour emerging from inside the ranks of the Met, albeit from individual officers as well, presided over by Cressida Dick. And then there was the shattering trust around the Sarah Everard vigil too. They have to reach out to the diverse communities in London, but also recognise that they have to try and balance this with a tricky relationship. But I think also the new commissioner should press for a simpler line of accountability. They should be accountable directly to the Mayor of London, as the police and crime commissioners are in other parts of the country, not rather than this split mandate between them and the Home Secretary. It's a silly remit, in my opinion.
James?
Well, we could talk about burglaries and them fixing that. We should talk definitely about knife crime, which is a real scandal in London. They should stay off the hate crime. They should stay off all this sociological intervention.
They should not police hate crime, is what you're saying.
Well, first of all, it isn't a crime. You know this, Darryl, right? It's not a crime. It's
being racist. Has been racist a crime?
A hate crime, if you'll forgive me, is recorded as a non-crime incident, all right? And it has led to people being asked what were they thinking when they put out a tweet or did things like that. That is a step on the very dangerous road I've already outlined, and with which you don't seem to be fully familiar with. But,
what am I not familiar with, sorry?
Well, you asked, what's wrong with the police intervening with Boris? I'm asking now, what's right with the police intervening and asking, what do you think? Do you think, Darryl, that the Metropolitan Police...
It's not what you think, though, is it? It's not necessarily what you think, James. It's what you have enacted. If you have been racist...
Are you reading the papers?
Misogynist,
are you reading the papers about what happens to certain people who express certain views on the transgender issue?
If you spray a piece of anti-Semitic graffiti across a synagogue, that's a hate crime, and the police will try to find out who you are, where you are, and you will be prosecuted. You're suggesting that shouldn't be.
It's very clever what you're saying. It's very clever what you're saying. But I lost an aunt to Auschwitz, so listen very carefully. Thank you very much. Right?
Well, I'm sorry, hang on a minute. I don't know what you're accusing me of there, James. But I'm simply making a point. I'm giving you an example of it. James, I'm giving you an example of a hate crime.
You are talking very fast and trying to get me to look as if I don't object to that kind of action. I do object to that kind of action. The question.
Well, when you said the police shouldn't police hate crime, you do sound a little bit like you don't object to that sort of action.
You're very good at interrupting, but if you would let me finish, please, I'd be grateful. Or maybe let Mike speak.
No, go on, James. Carry on. You're right. It's fair. You should have the right to say what you need to say. Go ahead.
Well, if you read the papers, and I know you do better than me, you will know that the police have been around people's doors for views or tweets that they've expressed, and they've asked them directly, what were you thinking? PCs and other people have done that. Now, that's a very dangerous road to tread. I'm sure you and Mike would agree on that, right? And that was done under the hate crime provisions that the College of Policing, which has since been, I was reading today, the building's been got rid of, and people are calling for a new or better College of Policing. They introduced that about 10 years ago. Now, most people in this country, I'm sure, and I'm sure you'd agree, Darryl, would rather have deaths, murders, burglaries, and knife crime dealt with than what people think and what people write and what people tweet.
Well, not if what they write and tweet is hateful, right? Not if what they write and tweet it demonises a minority group, or is ultimately, as we've seen time and time and time again, countless examples of, James, becomes a problem in the real world. It incites hatred, ultimately incites violence, ultimately contributes to all of those problems, those physical real world problems that you want the Metropolitan Police to focus on.
Well, I don't agree. You know, you believe that a graffiti will incite the vulgar masses to anti-Semitic attacks on a synagogue. I don't agree with that. I think the masses are very hostile to anti-Semitism and very hostile to those graffiti artists.
It doesn't have to be the masses, though, does it, that it incites? It only has to be one person that it incites. Sure, but you know, I'm surprised how judicial your approach is. You know, we are supposed to be in favour of free speech. Yeah, but we're not free to hate, James. We don't have free speech.
We are free to hate.
No, James, it's a total misnomer. We don't have free speech in this country. You are not free.
If you would let me finish.
No, hang on a minute, James. Hang on a minute. You are not free to. You are not free to be racist. You are not free to be misogynistic. You are not free to incite that kind of hatred.
I might be hating you now. You might be hating me now, and I am free so to do. It's called democracy. Do you want to call the police on me? I hope not. No, because that wouldn't be democratic.
But that's not what we're talking about, is it, James? We're not talking about. We're not talking about
exactly what
debate.
We're talking about.
No, it isn't. We're talking about protected.
If you would let me finish, it's quite the rudest interview I've had.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so terribly sorry.
Right. Now, if you would let me finish my point, right? Who decides what is hateful? Who decides what I think and whether it's wrong or right? Do you think the police should have that power?
Yes, we have pretty clear definitions, don't we, of what is and isn't hateful?
Well, what I think.
Well, no, it's not necessarily about what you think. It's about what you enact, isn't it? If you are free, James, you are free to think awful thoughts, but the moment that you tweet them, or the moment that you say them out loud, they become a problem, don't they? They do become a problem.
Well,
you're not free to be hateful. No, not at all. It's not. That's absolutely not the same thing, James.
Well,
that is not the same thing.
Your combative style I much admire, but why not hand over to Mike?
Okay, Mike, let's talk about Kurt Zouma, because I really want to try and get to this point as well, because Kurt Zouma has been reprimanded this week by West Ham. He's been fined the maximum amount by the club after he was found to have kicked and slapped his cat. The RSPCA have taken them away. Kurt Zouma has apologised, but there was criticism of David Moyes, the West Ham manager, for including Kurt Zouma in the lineup the day after. He's also apparently available for selection tomorrow. James, where do we stand on this? I mean, should he be removed from the team, or has that got nothing to do with it?
Mike's turn.
Sorry, yeah, Mike. I meant Mike. Forgive me, Mike. I've got James on the brain.
I'm batting for you, Mike, because I believe in free speech. But we're not getting a lot of it tonight.
Thank you, James.
You're getting a hell of a lot of it, James, and you're living rent-free, clearly, in my brain. Go ahead, Mike.
I have to declare an interest. I am in a relationship with a Leicester City supporter, so if there's one less West Ham player on the pitch tomorrow, then I might be happy with that. But on the issue of Zouma, David Moyes has the right to pick the team he wants to pick and to play. Obviously, the actions were horrible. You know, any form of abuse against animals is horrible. But at the end of the day, there is an issue of, I think David Moyes has to make a judgment about the players he has in front of him, the talent, and he clearly felt that playing Zouma was the right decision on Tuesday. And at the end of the day, he owned that decision as well. He stood up and said, "Look, you know, I am the manager of this team. I'm the manager, and I want to essentially play Zouma." Personally, I hope, from a fan perspective, he doesn't play tomorrow, but I think he's apologised and his sanctions have been taken. It's time to move on.
Okay. James?
Well, I think it was George Orwell, Darryl, who said that the English like animals to the extent that they dislike human beings. I tried to find it for you. I think it's in his collected essays, if I'm not mistaken. His wartime essays, much better than his novels. And I think there's a lot in that. I don't at all condone, in fact, I condemn this unknown to me, from a sport unknown to me, for doing horrible things to a cat I never met, because I like animals too. I think the brouhaha about him probably has gone way far enough, because, we have more important issues to discuss in Britain today, like 450 people dying from cancer today, than him fligging a cat across the room. And you might say, Darryl, well, starts with a cat, ends with human beings. But I put it to you that, if I'm not too controversial, that Hitler loved animals, but it didn't prevent him doing what he did. So, let's not be sentimental about them. Let's not be too censorious. There's enough censoriousness in society today about this grievous mistake that silly young man made. But, did he rape a young woman? Did he, subject a human being to torture? Very fashionable nowadays. Did he engage in revenge porn or something really hurtful like that? No, he didn't. So can we calm down about it a little bit?
James, I think I agree with you.
Well, there's progress yet.
Can you believe it? What has happened?
At least friendly with you two getting on. I mean, that's the important thing.
Well, I know nothing of football, and that could still divide us. But,
No, what he did was awful. I mean, it was hideous. It was hideous. I'm the owner of two cats, and I'm not a mad cat person, but I own two of them, and I care for them dearly, and it hurt me to see what he did, but. To lose your gig over it, to be reprimanded, sure, the RSPCA has taken them away, sure. I think he was fined, wasn't he, by the club or something like that? Sure, a chance for him to apologise, think again, change his behaviour, look at himself, and move on and carry on with the rest of his life would probably be.
No, I think he should be put in the stocks, and eggs thrown at him. I mean, let's get progressive here.
Oh dear, we were nearly there, James. We were so nearly there. Nice to talk to you both. Thank you both for being with us tonight on the Friday Fan. I really appreciate it. James Woudhuysen and Mike Indian, political commentator. Good one, that one. Robust, right?